In October 2008, 2 months before Bernie Madoff was arrested, JPMorgan Chase quietly pulled $275 million of its own money out of his funds. They had concluded internally that his returns were too good to be true. They filed a warning with British regulators. They did not file one with American regulators. They said nothing. 6 weeks later, Madoff confessed to his sons, and 40,930 victims in 127 countries discovered that $65 billion had vanished. JPMorgan knew. They saved themselves, and they let everyone else burn. That is the real story of Bernie Madoff, not the fraud itself, but the system of willful blindness that protected it for 40 years. And by the end of this, you'll understand why the people responsible for stopping him were the same people protecting him. Madoff was no back alley swindler. He had been chairman of NASDAQ, the polished architect of modern electronic trading, a man whose name alone opened doors that lesser financiers spent careers trying to unlock. His wealth management operation promised steady, impossible returns regardless of market conditions. And for 4 decades, nobody in a position of authority asked the obvious question. Not the SEC, not the banks, not the exchanges, not the auditors. Everyone either looked the other way or was never looking at all. Harry Markopolos looked, a quantitative analyst who understood markets the way a surgeon understands anatomy. Markopolos spotted the mathematical impossibility of Madoff's returns in a single afternoon. The numbers were not just suspicious. They were statistically impossible without either omniscience or fraud. He compiled the evidence into a formal report, titled it "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud," and submitted it to the SEC in 2000, then again in 2001, then again in 2005. He walked regulators through the mathematics, explained the mechanics, named the name. The SEC investigated Madoff 8 separate times over the years and found nothing because they were not really looking. But that's not the darkest part. While Markopolos was being ignored, JPMorgan Chase was having private conversations that would later become the most damning evidence. As far back as 1998, a JPMorgan fund manager wrote internally that Madoff's returns were possibly too good to be true and flagged too many red flags. In June 2007, one employee speculated internally that Madoff's returns were part of a Ponzi scheme. And in October 2008, 2 months before the arrest, JPMorgan identified the operation as likely fraudulent, filed a warning with UK authorities, redeemed $275 million of its own exposure, and stayed completely silent with American regulators. When Madoff was finally arrested, a JPMorgan employee reportedly told a colleague, "Can't say I'm surprised." They paid $2.6 billion in fines to avoid criminal prosecution. Not one JPMorgan executive was individually charged. The bank's CEO Jamie Dimon faced no consequences whatsoever. What nobody reported loud enough was this. The SEC didn't just fail to catch Madoff. They were warned about him 8 separate times and chose, repeatedly, not to act. Harry Markopolos spent 9 years submitting evidence, meeting with regulators, and watching in helpless fury as the scheme ballooned, from hundreds of millions to tens of billions. His most famous submission, a document literally titled "The World's Largest Hedge Fund is a Fraud," was dismissed as the ramblings of a jealous competitor. The SEC's own internal review later admitted the failures in painful detail. Nobody was fired. Nobody was prosecuted. The same regulatory apparatus that ignored 9 years of warnings quietly moved on. Madoff's own sons turned him in on December 10, 2008, the day after the firm's annual Christmas party. Mark and Andrew Madoff confronted their father about the fraud he had finally confessed to them, and then called the FBI. The arrest came swiftly. The sentence was 150 years. He died in federal prison in April 2021 at age 82. having served less than 13 years. And then something happened that the headlines barely covered. The darkness spread into his own family like slow poison. Mark Madoff hanged himself in his Manhattan apartment in 2010, on the second anniversary of his father's arrest, leaving a note that directed blame squarely at the man who had built the empire of lies. Andrew Madoff fought on longer, but died of cancer in 2014 at 48, telling interviewers in his final months that his father had killed him. Not with violence, but with the reputational destruction and relentless stress that consumed whatever the disease left behind. Two sons, both dead, neither guilty of the crime that destroyed them. For the victims, justice arrived in slow, painful installments. In December 2024, 16 years after the collapse, the final payments from the Madoff Victim Fund were distributed. After 10 rounds of payouts totaling $4.3 billion, victims recovered just 93.71 cents on the dollar of their proven losses. Charities dissolved. Retirements evaporated. Elderly couples who had trusted Madoff with savings accumulated over decades received partial restitution years after the damage had already restructured their lives beyond repair. Here's what should keep you awake at night. The architects of the institutional failure, the SEC officials who ignored Marco Polo's 9 times, the JPMorgan executives who saved their own money, while staying silent about everyone else's, faced no meaningful personal accountability whatsoever. The bank paid $2.6 billion from shareholder funds. Not $1 came from the individuals who made the decisions. Not one career ended in prosecution. Not one regulator faced consequences for 8 failed investigations. Madoff pulled the levers, but the machine that let him operate for 40 years belonged to all of them, and that machine is still running. The same revolving door between regulators and Wall Street. The same culture of deference to powerful names. The same institutional incentive to look away rather than ask uncomfortable questions about people who matter. The next Madoff is already operating. The warning signs are already being filed. And somewhere right now, someone in a position of authority is reading them and deciding it's easier not to look. And like any story still unfolding, there is no clear ending yet, but it has already begun. This is Dark History.